All right, man. Sounds good.
And now for our feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series.
Watson, touchdown! Hunter Renfrow.
He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Senegal baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Friday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at stokesvw.com. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app. You can download that into your phone. It's free, and you can watch and listen to our program daily in its entirety between 12 and 2 p.m. If you are watching to the right of the screen, that is me, JB. To the left, that is Darren. And over the next couple of hours, we'll keep you as entertained as we possibly can. It is an enormous weekend in college baseball, not just in South Carolina, but across the country. I would recommend to some of you fence straddlers who don't understand the sport that well, or maybe don't get that excited about it, sit your ass down and watch one of these games in May and tell me you can't fall in love with it quickly. It is going to be a hell of a weekend. We're going to talk about a lot of that. Derek Scott, the voice of Gamecock Baseball, is going to join us this afternoon at 1:30. Carolina is fighting for a top 16 national seed. They're going to release the top 20 next week, who will be in contention for those 16 positions. And if South Carolina can get a series victory over the fourth-ranked Mississippi State Bulldogs this weekend, they're going to be in a pretty good position to be in that group. Across all social media platforms, at JB and Goldwater individually, at Sports Media JB, and at Darren Goldwater. 843-321-8893 is our phone number. It is also our text line, and it is open to all of you to send us whatever comments you would like to send our way. We also have Raphael Esparza in Vegas at 12:30. We're going to talk to him about the Derby, the FCS playoffs. How about the 2021 Heisman Trophy odds? Those are out. We'll get into some of that as well. And Gene Sapikov ahead at the top of the 1 o'clock hour, a bunch to get to there. We've got some news out of PC. That is some interesting football news that broke yesterday, and much, much more. So we hope that you'll stick around and let us jumpstart your weekend here on the JB and Goldwater Show. Good afternoon, Darren Goldwater.
I'm happy that it's finally Friday. I know the video that I'm using right now, I think it's freezing. It's bugging me. I'm trying to fix it. It will get fixed at some point, but at least the audio is going to be nice and clean here. But it's Friday. I got 2 more hours, and it's the weekend.
Yes, just a couple more hours, and then it is off. I'm going to go get the kids and put them on the golf cart. I promised them we'd go find the alligator that's in the lake down the street, and we would also go look for lizards and squirrels.
Fun.
So that is our Friday afternoon.
We've got a gator, I believe, in both of the neighborhood ponds right now. Well, 3 if you count the one next door to the neighborhood. So I think there's 2 in the 3 ponds. Basically, one of them's a pretty good size.
Yeah,
we're debating gator tail.
That's right. Yeah, there you go. Just catch them and chop them up.
Mm-hmm.
Get you some good dinner. Again, 843-321-8893. What questions, comments do you have as we get into the weekend? Again, there is actually a lot to get to in sports, but we're going to start off with our 2-minute drill as we generally do on Friday afternoon. State baseball this weekend will be played everywhere. In the Big South, Charleston Southern at 14-20. They'll host Winthrop in North Charleston this weekend. Big series for the Bucks. They've been off throughout the midweek. College of Charleston is at William and Mary. They're 18-18, 8-7 in the CAA. A series loss last week at Elon, hoping to get right back on track this weekend. Citadel's also on the road. They're in the Sparkle City, Spartanburg, that is, against the Wofford Terriers, following a 10-2 loss against Mississippi State on Wednesday. Remember, Tony Skoll won't be coaching this weekend due to a positive COVID test. He'll be watching from afar. Blake Cooper is in charge, former Gamecock, of course. Looking forward to seeing what he's got to do in his second game as quote-unquote head coach. Clemson is rolling. They've won 7 straight, 2 straight sweeps in the ACC, and they'll look to make it a third starting tonight in Atlanta against Georgia Tech. Huge last 4 games against really good programs, Louisville and USC Upstate. Tigers 22-18, 15-12 in the league. Coastal Carolina's got Troy this weekend. They're 21-18, 5-7 in the Sun Belt. That's at home. And, of course, the Gamecocks and Mississippi State will go tonight. Brandon Jordan will get the start for South Carolina, shaking up the weekend rotation. The Sunday game will be televised on the SEC Network. Carolina 27-15, 11-10 in the SEC heading into the weekend. FCS playoffs are also going to play tomorrow. We're going to talk more about that with Raphael Esparza coming up. And if any of you have not checked the scoreboard, the Atlanta Braves swept right through the Washington Nationals, who are going to get swept again this weekend against the Yankees. And the Braves will continue those sweeps with the Phillies, 7:20 tonight at Truist Park.
If you do, that's not the worst thing in the world for the Nationals, because the Phillies are towards the top. You can bump them down a little bit. I'm cool with that.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, bump Philly into third. Braves go to first, and then y'all will be right at home in second place, and then as the season goes along, falter, right?
Well, we'll see. I'm not happy about being swept. You know that.
I will say one of our great listeners, I call her Sweet Lily.
Mm-hmm.
She sent a message last night and said, "Ask Darren what the score of the Nationals game was tonight. I can't get it to pull up on my phone."
Notice
work, Lily.
That to me this time.
Yeah. No. But I bet if she's listening or watching, she probably will hear before long. Again, 843-321-8893, whatever chat room's available. If you're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever, and you got something to send our way, go ahead and send it right to us. Yesterday, Governor Henry McMaster signed the name, image, and likeness bill in the state of South Carolina into law. The bill will take place July 1, 2022. So the Palmetto State will be right in that neck of the woods with pretty much the rest of the southeastern U.S. as name, image, and likeness comes to fruition across college sports. No Georgia-type rule in there either that says potentially 75% of your name, image, and likeness fees or funds could be redispersed amongst the athletics department or amongst their peers or amongst many things if you bring that money in. South Carolina's rule is what's yours is yours, but let's also remember that there are a couple of things you can't do, like endorsing marijuana and tobacco and alcohol and direct competitors with the universities in this state, like Clemson, South Carolina, the College of Charleston, or whomever. So that is now officially law in South Carolina, and next year folks will be able to take advantage of that. You know, it's interesting timing too. I mean, you wonder, will there be, because they're a year late to the party amongst some of their peers, state peers, I guess you could call that, will there be any penalty when you're trying to recruit a kid or something like that? I don't think so. I really don't think so. You know, all these states, what they're really hoping for is that a blanket law comes into play and they can all play by the same rules. They're all passing these laws. Part of it is, okay, you know, they feel like these young men and women deserve their name, image, and likeness. And then the other side of it is politics. Period. The end. You don't have to say a whole lot more than that. But at the end of the day, it's coming. So I think everybody would like this to be in the on a level playing field. So we'll see where it goes. But there was nothing unusual that stuck out in the. I read most of it that stuck out of the South Carolina state law. And starting next year, if you're an athlete at the collegiate level in Palmetto State, congratulations. You will be able to make some extra dough because of your name.
Just like anything else that's going on in college athletics right now, right? The arms race, the facilities race, you got to keep up with NIL. If you're not, you're going to get left behind. Kids, why would I come to one state if I can go get paid in another? It's very simple.
Yeah. It is. It's simplifying itself. It feels like it's been very complicated for the last couple of years, and it has been. It's been complicated because we have been changing age-old rules to something that we're not used to. Mm-hmm. And so there has been complication there, but it's coming. It's arrived in this state, and in 2022, those young men and women will be able to take advantage of the new state law. Albert Pujols was designated for assignment yesterday, and you have to unfortunately wonder what the future of the future Hall of Famer looks like in Major League Baseball. I think he's at 677 career home runs. And I thought just a couple of years ago, well, if we're going to see another 700 home run guy anytime soon, it is definitely going to be Albert Pujols. Darren, I don't think he's going to get there. I think his career might be over.
I think so. He wasn't really playing with, I want to call him Anaheim. He wasn't really playing with the Angels when he wasn't effective at all. His OPS was like 620. Yeah. There's no reason someone's going to pick him up and use him right now because he's not effective at all. So I think it's more likely than not that we've seen the last of Albert Pujols. And that was one of the milestone watches heading into the year. Can he get to that number? How long will it take to get to that number? We figured he'd struggle. We've seen the career decline, but could he hang around long enough to get there? I think we all kind of assumed he'd at least have the shot. I certainly didn't see this coming. I don't think a lot of other people saw this coming. I watched the press conference announcing the move yesterday, and the Angels basically said, look, why not now? We made the decision. It's not an easy decision, but this is when we came to the decision. So we're making the decision now. So I don't think they saw it coming right now either.
No, I don't think they did at all. I mean, and when you look at it, where things are with the organization itself, they're in last place. At 13 and 17, but they're only 4.5 games out, and they've got a lot of money invested in Mike Trout. Ohtani's out there. You can question how they've spent their money if you'd like to, which is fair. Mm-hmm. But you also have a couple of superstars, and and I don't know if Albert Pujols is the only problem they have. I don't think he is, but he might be a major part of the problem. And Hall of Famer or not, you got to move him. What's hard for me to believe, this just didn't click. Mm-hmm. He's been out there since 2011. That just doesn't make sense. I thought for sure it's only been 4 or 5 years. Whoa.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why they are in such financial trouble, right? Because they signed remember back to 2011 when they signed him, there was a lot of criticism then of, are you guys really putting all this money right now at this stage of his career into Albert Pujols? Because the Cardinals weren't going to do it. Right. And that's one of the reasons they're in this spot. And remember, Mike Trout's not getting any younger. Ohtani is one of the most exciting players in baseball. They just paid a boatload of money for Anthony Rendon, who can't stay healthy either. Right. So they need to fix things. They need to find a way to get into the postseason and be contenders in the postseason before this thing with Mike Trout gets past a certain point, right? Don't let this get to the middle part of his career and not have even given him a shot for a championship. And for us fans, a shot to watch him play for a championship.
I think he's only been in the playoffs once, right?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a shame. I mean, that's just really a shame. It's sad. And he's a guy who elected to stay there. I mean, he could have gone anywhere. Mm-hmm. And he chose to stay right there. And I'm sure, I don't know. I mean, he seems like one of the really good guys in this sport. So I don't foresee Mike Trout being the type of player that walks into the front office and demands this, that, and the other. Some guys do that, believe it or not. I don't think he's that type of guy. but I don't know that there's any way that you can look at Mike Trout and think that he doesn't knock on someone's door and get, come on, man. Like, I love all this money. I get it, but I'd like to try to win a championship one day around here if somebody didn't mind helping me out a little bit, and he ain't got much.
I don't know the specifics, but remember, he re-upped and signed a long-term deal 2 off seasons ago, I believe, with the Angels. I don't know if it's like one of the Harper deals where there's a no trade in there both ways. You know, there's no opt-outs for Bryce and there's no trade for the Phillies. I don't know how it's worded exactly, but it's something that if the Angels can't figure this thing out, they can't fix this, then Mike Trout will have to seriously think of, hey, do I want to be closer to home? He's a Philly guy. Do I want to go that way? Or, am I comfortable playing out here?
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see how it looks. I think, though, that we will see Albert Pujols here in 2021 for the last time. I think his career is all but over.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk to Gene a little bit about that coming up in a little while. Raphael Esparza is next. Start your weekend right at DB's Cheesesteaks. How about that? What? Yeah, man. If you've been eating good all week, eating well, chicken and salads and stuff like that, go shove your gut with a foot-long buffalo chicken cheesesteak from DB's Cheesesteaks. They have been voted by you the number 1 cheesesteak in the Low Country. If you're going to be in the Low Country this weekend, that's where you want to eat today, tomorrow, Sunday, all 3, whatever. And remember, they'll also deliver. DB's Cheesesteaks.com for their entire menu. Don't forget the boardwalk fries. They come with the Old Bay seasoning. In Avondale and West Ashley, they're on every delivery app available. DB's Cheesesteaks. That's where I eat often, and will probably do so again this weekend. But I got to mix it up tonight. I got to figure it out because I did the cookout thing for Skyler last week on his request, and it didn't work. So we got to see what works, though. Speaking of baseball and college baseball, it's now time for our new Friday segment of 3 weeks ago, Buy or Sell, which is presented by our friend Jeff McCarriger with Carolina One Real Estate. Now, this is going to be a really neat segment today because there's a lot to unpack with the regional situation. Again, if you don't know much about college baseball, if you only watch or listen to us because you only want to hear football, then you're not a real sports fan. And we would encourage you to try to become one by listening to what we're about to discuss here, because these type scenarios are very similar to what you see in March Madness, except it's series, not one game. So you got to break it down a little bit differently. And we're going to do that here in just a moment. Jeff McCarriger, of course, has been a friend of the Low Country for a long time. If you're buying or if you're selling, you can be sold on this. I promise you that. You better have a realtor that knows what they're doing with your dollars. This is a hot market. You don't even have to list your home to sell it anymore. I mean, folks are coming from everywhere. They're paying over asking price. And if you're trying to buy a home, it is really difficult to get a good deal anymore in the Low Country of South Carolina. But Jeff can get it for you. He's really good. He's trusted. I'll say this. He's not a slick salesman at all. It would probably help him if he was, but he's not. He's just a good old honest dude, man. And he's going to talk to you about who you are and where you want to be financially, where you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, what your game plan is. It's going to be a comfortable conversation, and you're going to make a comfortable decision with Jeff McCarriger. And some of you, as we know, are going, that's all sounds good and all, but how the hell do you spell that? Well, we get it. Yeah. Jeff is pretty simple. The McCarriger part, 2 C's, 2 R's, and a GH is what we say. McCarrager. Jeff.McCarriger at carolina1.com. If you're watching, of course, you can see that on the screen. If you're not, and you really want to get a hold of him and none of that makes sense, let us know. We'll get you in touch with him, or you can shoot him a text at 843-834-7455. So we'll have Darren pop this back up here. It's our buy or sell segment. And question 1 today. Now, this isn't necessarily who is going to be a regional host, because next week they're going to release this field of 20, Darren, and they'll choose from that down the road the 16 regional host sites in college baseball. But these are for the programs that are either considered right now to be host sites or are knocking on the door of them. And I'm going to even include another one or two into this conversation as well. But the first one is Ole Miss. Buying or selling Ole Miss being in the top 20 next week. Now, let me kind of follow this up with what's going on this weekend with the Rebels, who currently, based on D1Baseball.com's projections, are a 10 seed. They're at Texas A&M, and both their Saturday and Sunday games will be nationally televised on ESPNU. Texas A&M has had a rough year, so the Rebels will head to College Station at 32-12, 13-8 in the SEC. Darren, are they a top 20 program next week?
Yes, because how often have we talked about how important it is to be playing some of your better ball right around this time? Look at that first column right there, your 7-day change in the RPI. They are up 6 spots to number 10. They are one of two in this graphic with a better than 500 record against the top 25 in the RPI. Ole Miss is not only going to be a top 20, Ole Miss is going to host a regional.
Yeah, I'm with you. I buy both. I buy both. I do think they'll host a regional. I certainly believe they'll be in the top 20 next week. They got a great chance to sweep A&M this weekend. I would be stunned if they don't win at least 2, and I won't be shocked to see them sweep. So I'm with you. I'll buy both of those with the Ole Miss Rebels. Now, elsewhere in the SEC, Florida, who has played better baseball of late to get themselves right back into the thick of it. Now, here's the thing with Florida. Florida took 2 of 3 from Ole Miss earlier this year. All right. Florida got swept by South Carolina. The Gators are 31-14, 13-9 in the SEC. You see some of their other stats right there. They sit at number 29 in the RPI. They're 6-9 versus RPI top 25 teams. And the reason that they're 3 games under 500 is because they were swept by the Gamecocks. South Carolina's 4-11, top 25 is great, right? Well, 3 of those 4 at the time were against Florida, but currently the Gators are number 29. So if Florida can move back into that RPI top 25, South Carolina's RPI top 25 record is going to go up actually to 7-11, which would be really good for the Gamecocks. That is something that the committee will certainly entertain. They lost last night, 7-5 at Kentucky. The Wildcats trying to play their best baseball at the right time of the year. But last weekend, the Gators won a series against Vanderbilt. That was at home. We all know what Vanderbilt's accomplished this year. That was a huge series win for the Gators. And as a matter of fact, it was their 3rd in a row. But the last 2 were against Missouri and Auburn, 2 programs who just aren't having really good years. So buy or sell Florida being in the top 20 next week. Buy or sell Florida being a regional host, Darren.
I'm buying they're in the top 20 because, again, they take the series from Vanderbilt. They opened the series already with a win against Kentucky last night. They're playing well now. I don't buy that they're going to end up hosting, but I do think they will be in the well, we're not going to know the rankings of the top 20, but in my personal rankings, they're probably going to be like 18, 19, or 20 of the 20 that are going to be popped up sometime late next week.
13-9 are the Gators. If they lose tonight, they'll lose the series in Lexington. What's left is Georgia, who's scuffling, and Arkansas. Huge opportunity, but that series is in Fayetteville, which is certainly a challenge for the Gators. Now, it's hard to believe they won't get at least 1 in Lexington, and it's hard to believe that they won't win at least 2 against Georgia. And I just don't know that they go on the road to Arkansas and get swept, but they might. But if you give them 3 more wins, that gets them to 16 in the SEC. If they get 17, they're a host site. And I know that there's this debate out there, who's going to get the 6th host site in the SEC. I think it's a foregone conclusion. There's going to be 6 SEC teams hosting. I'm not buying that. I believe that there could be 7 SEC teams that host. So I'm buying Florida as a top 20 next week. I'm also buying them as a host site coming up here in just a few weekends in the tournament. And here's why. Because as you put that graphic back up, you've also got East Carolina out there, and they're on this graphic. They have an enormous series this weekend, enormous, against Tulane, who leads the AAC at 13-2. Now, Tulane is not projected as a host, and ECU is. And at this point in time, rightfully so. However, East Carolina is a 16 seed currently, and the Gamecocks, North Carolina State, and USC Upstate are all projected to go there by D1 baseball. So ECU is at 30-9, 12-4 in the AAC. They've got Tulane. They got to go to Cincinnati. They got South Florida. Cincinnati and South Florida are not any good. So they have to win the series this weekend, all right? If they lose the series this weekend, they're going to be off of the host line. If they win it, they're going to continue to be on it. They might even improve maybe by a spot or two. I wouldn't guess much more than that. But if they lose it, I don't know that Cincinnati and South Florida are going to be enough to get them back in there. But I buy them as a top 20 next week. I also do not buy them just yet as a top 16.
Okay. I'm buying them obviously as a top 20 next week, and I'm buying that they're going to host because number one, they are in every projection right now, and projections obviously can change. We got a couple of weeks, but it's tied with the fact of something you just brought up with the Gators. All of the projections to this point, at least the recent ones, have 6 SEC host sites. So I'm operating under the assumption that the belief is the committee doesn't want to, number one, get to 8 host sites in one conference to be half of the NCAA field is at an SEC place. And number two, that maybe they don't even want to get to 7. So if I'm buying in my mind that the SEC is only going to get 6, then I'm going to buy as well on the back of that ECU will be one of the other, 12 sites that are going to be out there.
One of the other 10.
10. Yeah.
So one of the other 10 sites.
For you.
Yeah, region. So I think, and I understand the logic behind the league system. I think that this is more geographical than anything. Right now, East Carolina's schedule is of zero comparison to South Carolina's. Most teams aren't. Skylar said it yesterday. After this weekend, next weekend, Tennessee, Carolina's going to have the number 1 schedule in the country. It'll be anybody that disagrees, go find one that's more difficult because you can't. Right. So it's not there. Before we get to South Carolina, let me plug one other one in here, and this is where I have the biggest issue. There is no way that Pittsburgh should be a top 16 national seed. No way. Mm-hmm. They're 20-12. And they're 14-10 in the ACC. Now, I'm going to give them some credit. Okay, their RPI sits at 26, which is not good enough for me to be a top 16 national seed. But I'm going to give them some credit for some things that they've done this year. They took 2 of 3 from a respectable Indiana State Sycamores team to open the season back in February. I'm one of those guys. Yeah, what have you done for me lately is certainly important, but you also need to look at the entire body of work. Mm-hmm. You know, I totally disagree with folks who's hot at the right time? Yeah, that's part of it. But then what are all those other games for then? So I count that for certainly for Pittsburgh. But again, they have 20 wins, guys, 20. They've played 32 games. And I know that COVID has caused some issues, and maybe you shouldn't be punished for that, but other teams shouldn't be punished for playing more difficult schedules either. They also swept Florida State on the road. Well, Florida State this year is not the Florida State of that we're used to. Respectable, though. You sweep on the road in the ACC, especially against a team like FSU, you have to get credit for that. So I give them credit. They also took 2 of 3 from Georgia Tech. They are not panning out to be the Georgia Tech that we thought they were maybe about a month ago. They're not that good. They're okay. They're respectable. But I also give them credit because they went on the road to Atlanta and won that series. So I'm going to give them credit there. Virginia's not good this year. So they're not getting a lot of credit for that. They were swept by Virginia Tech, who's one of the better teams in the league. They lost 2 of 3 against Notre Dame, who is the best team in the ACC this year. They did sweep Miami at home, and Miami has been hit or miss. They won 2 of 3 against North Carolina. At this point in time, UNC probably isn't going to be in the tournament. That is nowhere near the resume of Florida, of South Carolina, of Ole Miss. Hell, it ain't near the resume of teams who are not going to be host sites like Kentucky or Alabama. They're just not. So, you know, I don't think that Pittsburgh should even be close to a top 16 national seed. And I don't think that they will be a top 16 national seed. I do think that they have a chance to be in the top 20 next week, Darren. But this team, I know that they made me want to have a host site up there in the Northeast, but you got to earn it, dude. And I don't see anything on that resume that just declares top 16, in my opinion.
I agree with you, and I'll keep this pretty short. I think they're in the top 20 because of everything that you just laid out. I don't think they're top 16, but do keep your eye on them hosting maybe as like a number 2 seed just because of what you said, the regional aspect of it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great point. And then that brings us to South Carolina, which obviously they're playing this weekend for essentially their hosting lives, right? The Gamecocks with Mississippi State in town. I see the comment that we got, that 4-11 versus RPI top 25 needs to change for the Gamecocks. Well, keep in mind something with that. That is going to be pretty quickly 7 and whatever, because Florida, once they get back into the RPI top 25, like if Florida wins tonight in Lexington, that will be they'll probably be 25th in the RPI or 24th, 25th somewhere. So that's going to give you 3 more. That number fluctuates with the teams on your schedule. So Carolina right now theoretically has actually played 18 ball games against top 25 RPI teams, and they swept the Florida Gators, who are right now ranked like number 10 in the country. So that matters. But to that point, though, what they need to do down the stretch is not crap out, essentially. I'm of the belief that they have to win this weekend series to be in the top 20 next week. Now, do I think that's fair? I don't. I do think that South Carolina should be in the top 20 because Clemson, 3 games at Kentucky, and then a top 5 Tennessee team are a lot of opportunities if you are on the outside looking in to play your way to a 1 line. Like you absolutely should be rewarded that opportunity to finish out the season and have a chance to jump up and be a host. But if they lose the series this weekend, I'm fearful that the Gamecocks will have that opportunity, Darren. But I am going to buy them as a top 20. But as it stands today, I'm not going to buy them as a top 16.
Everything in this discussion has to be tied to the next 3 days, including today, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Right.
Because like you said, if they win this series, that's an outstanding series win. That gives you the momentum you need. You're absolutely top 20 at that point. And if you do take a series from Mississippi State, that also puts a lot of credibility into the resume, regardless of what happens, as long as you just don't fall off a cliff and tank down the rest of the way. So my entire answer here is predicated on I don't think the Gamecocks win the series. So because I don't think they win this series, I don't think they're actually even going to be a top 20. I think this weekend is going to be a challenging weekend. Yeah. I think obviously the offense is going to need to be there. As Mike Morgan said, can they hit the elite pitching? Tonight is critical. They need to get off to a good start. They need to feel some positive momentum, some positive mojo here. I don't think they win the series. I don't think they're top 20. And then once that happens, they're certainly not going to host.
Well, there's no real argument to be had if you're having this conversation, because everything that you're saying and everything that I'm saying, number one, it's very subjective at this point in time, but it's also all very true. Because South Carolina at one point, that is what this league does. Let me give you a stat real quick. Right now, and this was my point with Pittsburgh. Right now, as it stands today, the South Carolina Gamecock baseball team, Darren, has played 21 games versus top 5 teams this year. 21 games, or excuse me, will have played 21 games versus top 5 teams. Now, they're only playing 53 this year. Over 40% of the Gamecocks baseball schedule will have been played against teams that were in the top 5. Tennessee, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Florida, Vanderbilt. I'm wrong. Texas. That's 7. No, that's right. Yeah, 7 times 3 is 21. My math is terrible. So 7 series, 21 games, top 5 teams. And 5 of those 7 were at one point in time ranked number 1 in the nation. Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and Florida have all spent time at number 1 in the country. So, now that's the league you play in. Like, it's not fair because you don't win some of those games. The other teams are winning them. Like, you have to win the games. It's up to you. And that's what's great about this league is you have every opportunity to be as good as you want to be or to fall out of it. Unlike some of these other leagues where you might have a damn good year and everybody says, oh my God, well, they won 25 games in the league. Yeah, well, okay. They played South Florida. Who cares? In this league, every weekend is a grind. So South Carolina, they have that under their belt. So I'm not sure what this gentleman's name was, who and I'm not picking on him. He's right. They're 4-11 versus the top 25 as it stands today. But this is all going to change dramatically because once Florida gets back into the top 25, they're going to be an RPI top 25 team. That's going to add 3 more wins for South Carolina. Let's say they win 2 this weekend. Now they're all of a sudden at 9-12 in the RPI top 25. Still have Tennessee coming up at the end of the year. That's a top 25 RPI team. But if you get swept this weekend, and let's say Florida doesn't get into the top 25, now you're 4-14 versus the RPI top 25, or you could be 7-14. Like, those numbers are going to fluctuate so much, but that is the risk reward versus playing this type of schedule. And you just got to go win the games. Like Steven said, just win any way possible. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, at the end of the day, guess who controls it? You do. And in the SEC, you have control over every single thing that you want to do in this sport every single year.
Everything you said is true. But at the end of the day, you got to win this series if you're going to be a host site. You got
Absolutely.
You got to at this point. So
no question.
Everything you said is true, but it's going to come down to this weekend, most likely.
I know Raphael's waiting, but let me add one quick point here too. Keep an eye on LSU. I think LSU is going to play their way into this thing. I think Georgia's going to play their way out. And if you look at the standings, you go, no chance. I'm telling you, watch. Georgia went 3-3 between Auburn and Missouri. That's not good. They needed to go 4-2 or 5-1 in that stretch. They're scuffling a little bit, and the rest of their games, whoo, great. Shucks. Now they're 10-11 in the league. Arkansas this weekend on the road at Florida, and then they host Ole Miss. Hello. You find the wins there. Maybe 3 of them. I think they're going to play their way out, and I think LSU is going to play their way into this thing maybe with like a 13-17 SEC record. So we'll certainly keep our eyes on that. Do I think the shuffling of the starters will have any effect for Carolina this weekend? I sure hope so. I've got some notes on Brandon Jordan to pass along here in just a little while, and they're not good. So hopefully that mojo can change tonight for the Gamecocks. We're going to skip right through our break, and we're going to go right to Las Vegas, Nevada, and that's where we find the one and the only Raphael Esparza with mybookie.ag. What's up, man?
Not much. I'm just waiting for you guys to talk about the other sport in college sports. I mean, it's all baseball because it's in your backyard. But hey, the college beach volleyball championship starts this week. Give some West Coast love. Get some UCLA, USC, LMU, Cal Poly. But no, we have to talk about SEC stuff. Gee.
I was talking with I met a guy last week. Surprisingly, I met him at Dog and Duck because I'm never at Dog and Duck in Bell Hall. He happened to have played volleyball for Penn State, a very good program. So we were discussing how one of the most enjoyable events I've ever had the pleasure to call was a beach volleyball conference championship a couple of years ago. And I don't know the name of the conference, but it had South Carolina, Florida, LSU, College of Charleston was in it. It was an outstanding. If I can ever go call beach volleyball again, sign me up.
You could still talk about it because Florida State is ranked number 3 in the state in beach volleyball. But let's talk about college SEC baseball because everything goes around the world around SEC.
It does. You're right. I totally agree with everything that you said there. Yes, the SEC is the best baseball league. Matter of fact, the SEC is a better league than single A baseball, low A, single A baseball.
Hey, keep an eye out for Notre Dame in college baseball. They can surprise. They have some. But their bullpen is. No one ever talks about their relief pitching and stuff like that. Their starters go deep, and then usually it's kind of almost lights out when they bring in the pen.
Yeah, they're really good. And to add to this conversation, their volunteer assistant coach is Scott Wingo, who was the second baseman at South Carolina when they won the national championships back in 2010, 2011. You take the SEC to South Bend, you win, man. You figuring it out yet?
Okay, don't sleep on the Oregon Ducks. I think they're 10th ranked. I mean, they can hit the ball. They have two lefties that hit the ball better at left-handed pitching than they do at right-handed pitching. So don't sleep on the Ducks.
That's what's been interesting about this, and we're actually going to get off of it here in just a second. But Raphael, we were talking to our buddy Mike Morgan, who works for ESPN, calls games on Tuesday, and there's an enormous series going on out west this weekend. Arizona is at Stanford. Both of them have played their way into a host position in college baseball. And generally, that's what's happening this time of year. Like, you're kind of picking through it, right, Darren? Like, it's like a big old bush outside your house. You're kind of trying to look through. Like, I know I dropped something in there, but I can't find it. That's what it's like trying to find host sites on the other side of the country, because it's littered with them on the East Coast.
Yep.
And you're like, all right, well, where are we going to spread this thing out? But Oregon, Arizona, Stanford, they're all making their case.
Gonzaga, I get to put them in there as well. I mean, it's the only time I kind of like college. I mean, I know they play 40 games in college baseball, but I'm sorry, when it gets into early May, that's when college baseball is at full swing.
No question, 56 games. But yes, once it gets into May, nothing else matters, at least in my non-humble opinion. MyBookie.ag is where you can follow along, and we're going to get into some football stuff here in a minute, but give us an update on the Derby last. That was a great Derby, Raphael.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great Derby day in general. I mean, we had so many close races. I mean, there was a dead heat.
Dude, that was awesome.
Race 11, which you don't see that much in horse racing, especially in big stake races. So very exciting a day for the Derby. Some big winners, some big I was not shocked the way Essential Quality, but I'm sorry. I tried to fade Bob Baffert in the Derby, and Bob Baffert just turned around on TV and just gave me the double bird for what he did. I didn't think that horse had any shot just because he's such a small horse. Even he said it. I mean, if you look at him towards all the other horses, when they were putting him in the gate, I thought it was a pony running the race. So I'm still mad at Bob Baffert. Every time I see his silver hairdo, I'm going to give him the bird. But it was fun and exciting. Does he win the Preakness? That's going to be a close one, but there's no chance this little pony horse wins the Belmont.
Bob Baffert, when it leaves you speechless, does it not? This continues to happen. We all do it. I don't know. He's got a great horse. It is Bob Baffert, but I don't know. This guy over here, we find reasons to bet against him, and we probably need, if we want to win money, probably need to stop doing that.
Anywhere. Didn't have him coming in second, didn't have him coming at third, had him maybe picking up my pizza later on at night, but he just ran a perfect race, and normally he's never been passed in a race. So he took the lead, and he pretty much moonwalked the whole race because he was just looking behind him. No one passed him. And hats off to Medina Spirit, hats off to the jockey. I can't believe I had to say hats off to Bob Baffert, but one of these days I'll learn.
All right, so news this week, though, with the Preakness, there's a couple of major names that won't be running.
I'm not shocked that Essential Quality is not going to run. He'll run at the Preakness. That didn't shock me at all. So Madaloon's not running. He'll probably run at the Belmont Stakes as well. So it just tells me that some of these horses are just going to try to set. I mean, let's face it. The Preakness is not the longest race. And for horse racing, you love to see a potential Triple Crown winner coming into Belmont. It benefits everyone. It benefits all the tracks around the world because people are going to go to that track. If you can't go to Belmont and place your bet on, let's say if it is Medina Spirit, it benefits Belmont huge because people are going to pile in there to watch this little horse try to win the Belmont Stakes. So I understand a lot of these horses that try to want to beat him on the third leg and not the second leg. Let's see if he wins the second leg and just benefit the sport even more.
Raphael Esparza on Twitter at VSI Doc Sports. The field, if I'm correct here, is going to have is there 13 horses in the field? Is that right?
I'm hearing it's going to be anywhere between 10 to 13 for the Preakness.
Okay, all right. But Medina Spirit, it plus 170 here. You're not a fan of that?
No.
Okay.
No, I think Hot Rod Charlie will probably run really well. There's some other horses that are going to run this race that didn't run there. The France Go Delia, I think it's going to be a nice price, probably in the double digits. That horse is really big, has late speed. So there's a couple of horses that didn't run the Derby that's going to be running in this one, and I think they'll be able to beat Medina Spirit.
Ooh. There you go, Darren, Mr. Better.
I just like the story, man. I mean, he's bought for $1,000 and then he turns around and wins the Derby. That's
unbelievable.
Right. I mean, I think I saw it compared to almost like the Tom Brady of horses. 6th round, overweight, can't do anything. Bought for $1,000 and now he's a champion.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable with that. $1,000. I mean, that's crazy. I spent $1,000 on my Ked vet bills that I could have bought a horse.
What is like the? I don't even know if there's a stat out on this. Is there a stat out on the average price of Derby winners?
I haven't seen one. That'd be a very interesting stat. Probably not, because there's so many. Like we saw the college kids that bought pooled their money and bought it in. So I'm sure there's some kind of conflict on what the final price of that horse was.
Yeah, Hot Rod Charlie. That was still a wonderful story. Go Hot Rod Charlie. I'm still a fan. Always will be. All right, this weekend there will be some football being played, Mr. Esparza. I want to dabble in that here for a little bit with you. The final 3 football games that we'll be able to see until the fall, right?
Thank God.
Until we get to August. But Delaware and South Dakota State, they'll be ready to go at noon coming up tomorrow. And then at 2:30, James Madison and Sam Houston State. But we'll start with that Blue Hens Jackrabbits game. South Dakota State, 8.5-point favorites tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, if you like scoring, then don't watch that one and watch the James Madison one, because I don't think the total's 38. That would be totally blown away if this one goes into the 20 range. I like the plus points. I thought this number was going to be maybe a touchdown 7, maybe 7.5, but wow, 8.5. Is a little bit too high for me, but I think it's going to be a dead under 38. And I know you see that 38 and you may be scared off, but there's a reason why that total's 38.
38. Wow. That is just wild for a playoff game. All right. Well, all right. So you're saying under?
I'm leaning towards the under, but I'll take the plus points. I just did way too many points.
Yeah, okay. All right. Delaware is 7-0. South Dakota State is 7-1. So combined 14-1 between these two programs. ESPN tomorrow at noon. And at 2:30 on ABC, James Madison and Sam Houston State. You mentioned could be some more points in this one. The over-under still, though, only 47. However, James Madison is just a 1-point favorite in the ball game.
Yeah, I was hoping this would be flipped. I was trying to get some plus points with James Madison, but now you're just -1. You just have to pretty much win the game. I'll take James Madison on the road in this one. I just think they have the better offense, and I think if they can control turnovers and maybe try to control the second half, I think they pull away and win this game.
Can we now talk about what we've seen this year at the FCS level, Raphael? Hasn't this squashed the idea of potentially moving the FCS to spring?
I think it has. I mean, I've seen ratings for us in gambling. Ticket count has dwindled down to pretty much, I don't want to say a joke league, but pretty much nothing. Just because, I'm sorry, when you come into May, you think of NBA playoffs, you think of NHL, you think of the boys of summer and baseball. You're not thinking FCS. Football. Normally, if there's football going on right now, you're getting ready for the CFL and maybe the Arena Football League that play at nighttime, not where the FCS are playing a noon game where there's baseball on Fox that time. People are all pumped up to watch some big key games in the English Premier League because their season's getting ready to end. So soccer, most of these big leagues, our seasons are ending. So they're battling for the FCS when most of these channels, ESPN, ESPN Plus, Fox, are showing the Bundesliga League, Premier Leagues. So I just think it gets shadowed, and I think it's a complete failure for the FCS to continue to maybe if they're going to do it, play night games, all night games. Try to battle with baseball and soccer and day games.
coming into the year, but I think when we were in the fall, Darren and I, gosh, how many times have we had this conversation, Darren? 1,000 times it feels like. When they were talking about moving the FCS to the spring, I think the optimistic side of both of us and many others across the nation were, well, this could be a good thing, and here's why. They'll get their own platform for football. They're not going to be competing against the big boys, this, that, and the other. But it kind of turns out, look, Mike Morgan kind of laid it out a couple of weeks ago, which was good. He's a broadcaster, so he sees things from that national angle. If this was a permanent move, there'd probably be more contracts put in place to try to play more midweek night games. What are you going to watch on a random Thursday night in February or March? Oh, FCS football. That sounds great. There might be a little bit more promotion around it. But I think what we've, at least something that I feel like I've discovered, Raphael, is that the fall, the FBS level, the big boys, they help the FCS guys. I think that helps the FCS level a ton. I think we thought that maybe they competed with each other. I don't think they compete at all anymore. I think that when the big boys play, it makes that level matter just as much, if not more.
Yeah, I agree with changing the formats of scheduling wise, because you have so many different platforms now. So I think if you adjust the schedule where you have an FCS game on a Tuesday or a Wednesday day, when normally Wednesday's a light baseball day at nighttime because it's a travel day, where a lot of MLB games are in the afternoon. So maybe if you put a couple of FCS games at nighttime on ESPN, ESPN2, whatever, I think it'll get a little bit more love instead of trying to battle for a heavy dose of Saturday games when you just have so many sports going on in just one game.
I agree. Raphael Esparza on Twitter at VSI.Sports, mybookie.ag. You can retain yourself a 50% sign-up bonus if you've never participated at MyBookie, up to the first $1,000 that you deposit into your account. Again, head to mybookie.ag for more. Speaking of football, I was browsing around the site this morning, as I generally do on Fridays, because I got to be prepared. I never know what curveballs you're going to throw us. And I did discover the Heisman Trophy odds for the fall. And I thought, it's May. There's no reason to talk about that. Oh, maybe there is, because the third highest odds are to a guy who started 2 games in his career. DJ Uiagalelei at Clemson, 7-1 odds behind Spencer Rattler and Sam Howell. Right? His odds are better than Sam Howell's now.
Yes.
And Rattler and Howell are maybe projected to be the top 2 quarterbacks taken in next year's draft.
Yep. I mean, let's face it. When it comes to Heisman, especially this early, you're putting the team that you play on most of the time before the player. Then when the season starts, maybe week 3, week 4, then you're actually putting odds for the player and not for who he's playing for. So let's face it, Clemson is going to get a lot more money because the guy has Clemson next to his name than Sam Howell, who's got North Carolina, because we all remember the last quarterback that played for North Carolina that's holding a court in Buffalo right now. So you get totally different action right now than you'll get when it's week 1, week 2 in college football.
Well, I also saw that Alabama's Bryce Young is basically 5-1 odds to win this sucker as well, right behind Rattler, plus 550. So he's got the second best odds in the country. This is like, I feel like when I look at this is kind of strange. So think about this for a second. Bryce Young, DJ Uiagalelei, God, there were a couple other names that stuck out to me there. I'm like, dude, they have incredible odds based on talent. And then we see some of these other guys, like if I would call one of the more experienced quarterbacks in the country undervalued, if I were to call one of the more experienced QBs in the country undervalued, I'd call this guy, Matt Corral, at 22-1 odds. Have you seen this dude play? I would take those in a hurry.
Of course, you had to pick an SEC school. No one give some disrespect to the Indiana quarterback, Michael Penix Jr. from Indiana, who's playing outstanding football, pulling up Indiana to some relevance in college football. So, of course, you had a circle Ole Miss when you give no love to Big Ten.
Yeah, but because of Lane Kiffin and because they're in the SEC West, he's going to have so many chances this year to LSU, Alabama. Jimbo Fisher thinks A&M could be the next Alabama, amongst whomever the hell ever else is on their schedule. He has so many opportunities, and that dude could flat out play.
Well, Carson Strong from Nevada. I mean, he's going to play some horrible teams. He's going to pull up some big numbers that he should be getting some love. I mean, he gets to play UNLV, San Jose State, do the secondary stink. So right now, I look at this and I look at teams where quarterbacks or players who are going to put up big numbers, not just because of where they're playing, that can get overshadowed. Like so, I say I think the Indiana quarterback and even the Nevada quarterback, I think is great value, especially Strong, who's just going to put up video game numbers because of where he plays at the Mountain West.
All right,
I
so let me
like the Grayson McCall one. There's no way in any world that we live in that a Coastal Carolina player is going to win the Heisman, but he could put up massive numbers. I was going to go Penix with you. By the way, Kevin Harris, 20-1.
Yeah,
if Penix was an SEC, JB would announced his name first as his favorite one. Oh, this guy is great from Ole Miss. He's only played one game in high school, and he's going to be upset.
I'll be honest with. I mean, Spencer Rattler is going to be in the conversation, I think, throughout the year. I truly believe that. But if you ask me today, okay, outside of Spencer Rattler, who do you really truly like? Like good odds, I'd say Sam Howell. I really would say Sam Howell. We've watched this guy for 2 straight years at North Carolina. I know he's lost some weapons, but he returned some weapons. But Darren brought up a really good point there. Grayson McCall at Coastal, Dylan Gabriel at UCF. Who am I missing here? There's somebody else that I saw in here that
the smaller schools.
Yeah. Is there a place for them in the Heisman race? I mean,
in the media side, no, because it always has to be about the Power 5, the SEC. No, I mean, that's why I'm shocked that
Strong, Nevada. Sorry.
Yeah, I would say no, because the media is just going to force feed us the Power 5, SEC, ACC, that they're the greatest things than sliced bread, where some of these quarterbacks could pull up probably better NFL numbers, draft well, play well in the big leagues, but they got overshadowed because of the school that they represent.
Well, for a guy that 6, 7, 8, for a dude that doesn't care much for the SEC, you got 8 guys on this list. So just an FYI.
Well, I had only 4 guys on the list, and then I got a letter from the SEC, so I didn't want to be fined, so I thought I'd throw some more in.
Well, I think that Gamecock fans, he's not going to win the Heisman, but I think South Carolina fans should feel incredible about the fact that their starting running back, Kevin Harris, is listed as a 20-1 Heisman Trophy candidate. This is the first time I think South Carolina's had a running back even in that stratosphere since Marcus Lattimore, going into the 2012 season, I think it was. So that's neat. That's neat. All right, what else? What's UFC? What's going on in or UFC? Whatever.
Well, UFC is this weekend. Yeah. If people want to fight, people keep on bowing out. We saw one guy buy out today because he couldn't even walk to the scale to weigh in. He kept on feigning. But I'm sorry, this fight boxing is this weekend. Canelo Alvarez is fighting Billy Joe Saunders at Arlington and Jerry's World Saturday night. This could be Canelo Alvarez's probably toughest fight he's had in a very, very long time. Does Canelo win this one? I do believe he does, but would not shock if this one goes the distance. Would not be shocked if Billy Joe Saunders wins a couple of rounds. Would not be shocked if we see Canelo huffing and puffing, maybe a couple cuts around his face. This one's going to be a brutal one. I have Canelo winning by decision.
I'm going to start betting on boxing and UFC the way that some people bet on March Madness. Some people pick their brackets based on cool names and colors and stuff like that. I'm going to start picking mine on like the cool name, the badass haircut. Hey, speaking of which, you said it last week, and I'm with you. Those Paul kids, I saw the video of him ripping the hat off of Floyd Mayweather. What a punk. He deserves to get punched right in the face for that.
I agree with you, but at the same time, I think he wanted to expose on how bad Floyd Mayweather's hairdo looked like. I mean, get a haircut, Floyd. Jeez. I mean, his hair looked like he just woke out of bed. But I've told this story many times. Me and Floyd had toe-to-toe in a sports book many times arguing. If I was probably not behind the counter, he probably would have threw a punch at me. So I'm not the biggest Floyd Mayweather fan. I'm a big Floyd Mayweather fan June 5th when I want someone, and like I told people, this is not the best Paul brother when it's going in the ring. If this was Jake, it might be a little bit closer fight, but it's not Jake Paul. I think Mayweather toys around with him and then puts him away 3rd and 4th round.
I hope he does, because there's nothing that bothers me more than someone taking somebody's hat off their head. Well, there's a couple things. That's one of never mind.
Do you consider a visor a hat?
Yes.
This is a visor.
Yeah. Is that considered a hat? Like if I ripped it off your head?
Yeah, if you take anything off my head, it pisses me off quickly.
That happened. Would you just like reach over to someone, like knock their hat off? Like
I'd rather you spit in my face and take my hat off.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? Like,
I remember that next time I see you.
I'm gonna punch you for both of them. I'm just saying. Like,
I'm not gonna shake your hand or fist pump you or give you a hug or just spit on your face.
Actually, pre-COVID, I would have rather you spit in my face and take my hat off. But with COVID, no.
I'm clean. I've been vaccinated. I'm clean.
That's right. All right, man. Good stuff as always. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy college baseball because, like I said, this is the best time for college baseball.
It is.
Like I said, the dog days of April, February, and all that, it's snooze fest. I'd rather watch other stuff. But when it comes to May, this is when college baseball is fun. Switch to metal. Get rid of the metal bats. Why are we still playing metal bats in college baseball? Drives me freaking crazy.
Hey.
Okay, I'm done venting.
Okay. Well, a lot of baseball. There's a lot of college baseball games on this weekend. By the way, Braves swept the Nationals, Raphael.
Yes. And the Cubs. Hey, Cubs swept the Dodgers. Give me some love with that at least.
Braves, Cubs, National League Championship.
I mean, high school teams could sweep the Dodgers right now. They're not winning anything.
I flew that W with proud. I could care less.
Braves, Dodgers, NLCS. You heard it here first.
Well,
take it easy, guys.
See you, bud. Time for a timeout. National Anthem and Gene Sapakoff up next on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
This is Mike Naval for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. It's springtime and we're playing ball. Most dealerships don't have any inventory, but at Stokes Volkswagen we do. So we're playing ball on every new Volkswagen in stock. Every new Volkswagen available with 0 down. Qualified buyers can sign and drive with interest-free financing for 60 months. Remember, Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road is the fastest, easiest way to sell your car and get the most money for your trade. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, paid off or not. Is your credit in a slump? Strike 2! If you've got $500 down and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. So if you want to strike out, that's okay. But if you want to hit a home run and save on a new Volkswagen, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
$1,666 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with 0 down. Plus tax tag. Includes $499.50 administration fee. Subject to VCI credit approval. Expires month end.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Shrimping season's back. That means local caught shrimp. That's right. Local caught shrimp back on the menu at the Dog and Duck. All 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road, now featuring once again local caught hand-breaded shrimp, plus other daily specials like the Game Day Burger every Wednesday, Rib Night on Friday, rotating taps all the time, and all the TVs you can possibly imagine for whatever you want to watch. The Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Flamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the National Anthem.
live, loud, and online.
Final hour of the work week. Welcome back, the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, stokesvw.com. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app, also jbandgoldwatershow.com. Darren and JB across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB and at Darren Goldwater. Thanks to Raphael Esparza in that last segment out in Vegas. Derek Scott coming up next. He'll preview tonight's or in this weekend's series between Mississippi State and the Gamecocks of South Carolina. But first, our long-lost friend, Gene Sapikov, generally joins us earlier in the week, but he had to be on Feinbaum on Tuesday, so he couldn't join us. I'm kidding. But he's been kind enough to do it today, and we're happy to have him. Hey, Gene.
How's it going? You're talking about Vegas. You're talking about Stark Vegas. And as you know, there's really not that much difference between the two.
That's what I always say. They're like identical cities.
Pretty much. Especially after, 9:30 a.m. in the morning.
Especially if you don't remember anything. You can just tell yourself that.
Everybody has a...
Yeah, one of those towns is in a dry county. I'm not going to make you guess which one.
Well, it's not that dry in Starkville. We know it's not dry in Oxford. Every time a ball leaves the yard, they get a rain shower out there at Swayze Field. Gene, we'll put the baseball stuff on hold real quick. I want to ask you about Presbyterian football.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you did a whole column on Newberry wrestling. I mean, we got to get up the road to Clinton and give these guys some love, and they're getting national love because they've hired Kevin Kelly, and he's been in multiple national pieces. I think one was on ESPN a few years ago. Successful high school coach who doesn't punt. He onside kicks. What do you think about this hire for the Blue Hose, who actually, by the way, had a pretty good spring?
Wait a second. I'm online right now trying to get my Presbyterian season tickets. It looks like it's sold out. If you're going to opt out of Division I football, FBS football, FCS football, and go down a notch, I guess this is the way to do it. But I kind of wish now that they had stayed with the big guys, because I don't think Shane Beamer or Dabo Sweeney wants any part of Presbyterian right now.
I mean, so he doesn't punt, right? I'm kind of catching up. So if you see me looking off the screen here, but he's won 9 state championships or something like that. I mean, have you ever dug into this guy, Gene, at all? Has he ever been pursued?
A little bit? Just looking at football analytics and stuff. This guy is very well known. His name comes up. There's some guy in California does that, like 2 different center formation things, like A1 football or something. But no, this guy Kelly is amazing, and Bill Belichick has brought his name up at press conferences before, talking about how outside the box this guy is. So he's legit, and it's going to be really fun. It's an interestingly shrewd hire for me because, like I said, they are downsizing the emphasis of their football program at the time they bring in this big splash of a hire. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I haven't seen their 2021 schedule. I'll be interested to see what that looks like. Bill Belichick has called him, quote, probably the best high school coach in the country. That's what Bill Belichick said. About have you ever seen or heard of any other collegiate program pursuing Coach Kelly?
No, I haven't, and I'm surprised. Although, conventional college football programs, fan bases, athletic directors are pretty darn conservative, so that could be part of it, that they don't want to be part of something wacky. But I don't think what he does is any stranger than, say, a triple option. It's different. It's not the same, but lots of coaches are out there trying really strange offenses. The air raid, triple option again, So this is going to be really fun to play for, unless you're one of the punters that was on the Presbyterian roster and has transferred to Slippery Rock.
Oh, by the way, one of the greatest football trips to call a game of my life is Slippery Rock, Gene. That's an under the radar reference right there.
Darren, I would seriously like you to just take like up a whole show or maybe a couple shows and sort of like rank the pluses and minuses of places that you've been in the various sports. That would be cool and fascinating listening.
Slippery Rock is high up there. In fact, the mascot, because I buy some of those rinky like little things when I bring them back for the daughter. The Slippery Rock mascot is about 10 feet behind the camera that I'm looking at right now.
That would actually be an interesting conversation.
Oh, yeah. I got
maybe Gene, you and I will host one day, and we will have Darren on as our guest, and we can just grill him to death.
That would be good. I'd like it. I'd be up for it.
Well, final question on this. I really am fascinated by this hire, this Kevin Kelly hire. And by the way, beautiful Clinton, South Carolina. I do think Clinton's a neat town. I don't know if it's going to be successful, but if it is, could this become some type of trend at any level of the sport?
There is no doubt. I mean, and it's what's fun and cool about it is that football people are the stodgiest of the three major sports when it comes to embracing newness and analytics. When you have like the MIT Sports Analytics Conference, it is so baseball and basketball oriented, and there's just not that much football, and there's so many things in college football especially that is just old school, and they are very reluctant to check out new things. So I really like this, and you're right. Not only could this coach do well for himself going forward job wise, but maybe other coaches look at this and see, this could be for me. This could be the path.
Gene Sapikov with the Post and Courier. Gene, maybe another conversation you might have not known you're going to get yourself into today, and that is Albert Pujols. Have we seen Albert Pujols for the last time in the big leagues?
Well, I was kind of hoping that something weird like the Cardinals could sign him for a week or something like a weekend series, but baseball's too serious for that. It really is. And so I think we probably have. If there are injuries later and Albert stays in shape, maybe he gets on with an American League team where he can DH. I just don't see another team clearing a roster spot for him to play the field.
Do you think that the Angels feel like they got everything that they desired out of Albert Pujols?
No, he's a completely different player if you look at the splits from Cardinals to Angels, and it started almost right then, but particularly since the start of the 2017 season, I believe he has hit 240. He just hasn't been the same guy. Sometimes you get those glimpses, even over like a week or something, he'll get hot, but that's not what they had in mind when they put him together. At one point, I think they had Trout, Josh Hamilton, and Pujols, but certainly the Angels have been a really big disappointment. Everybody knows that, and the Pujols signing is one of the reasons. Let's face it, even though he's one of my all-time favorite players, but that was one of the all-time worst signings, I think, at least, production value-wise.
Oh, I agree. I mean, you look at Pujols, Andrew Jones comes to mind to me as well. Different players, obviously, in their positions and things like that. But two guys who it seemingly basically almost hit a wall in their career. You thought that, wow. I mean, if you asked me, Gene, I'd say 3 or 4 years ago, before the pandemic, even 2019, will Pujols get to 700 home runs? Oh, no doubt. Absolutely. Yeah, he is well worth 20 to 25 home runs a year for another few years. And I don't think he's not going to get there. He's going to be shy of 700, but we've been watching this guy for 20 years. I think we always thought he's got a chance to break every record, and he's going to be up there, but he's not going to be at the top of many of the lists we thought he had a chance to be.
Yeah, I mean, 5th on the all-time home run list, and I think he's going to stay there for a while. I mean, you look like, I think Cabrera's like 469 or something, way behind the 667, and maybe 489, something like that. I know he doesn't have 500. Albert Pujols, off the field, so much great work with special needs kids, and that within his own family. And then the story of, he's going to a Missouri junior college and is like a 16th round pick. And I think he went straight from Class A to the majors. It's just incredible.
There is one record that Albert Pujols owns. I don't know if anybody knows this or realizes it. Do either one of you know which one it is? It's an offensive record.
Offense. I mean, he's got
strikeouts
OPS stats that are ridiculous, but I'm not sure.
He's never had 100 strikeout season, which is awesome in my opinion. He owns the all-time record, 403 grounded into double plays. Oh man, that's
real swift of foot.
No. No. I think, Gene, he was the guy. He's like we don't see it as much as we used to, but there was a time in this sport I feel like where when you hit one, you knew you were going to ground into a double play. You just kind of trotted it out, and he is still that era guy. Like a lot of these, like Bryce Harper, if he feels like he's hitting into one, he's bagging it down there. I mean, Acuna, all these guys, this new age of player, they really play hard out there. But there was one era of player that routine ground ball. I'm just going to kind of trot down to first. He's never given that up. He's kind of always enjoyed that.
That's pretty cool.
You want one of the off the radar stats that I wasn't aware of, learned it yesterday, actually, watching the Nationals game. You'd never guess who leads the majors and grounded into double plays this year. It's Trey Turner, one of the fastest guys in the bigs. They brought the stat up at number 5, and he turns around and grounds one right back to the pitcher with the bases loaded, and it became number 6. Trey Turner.
I would never have guessed that.
Nope.
The pride of NC State.
Mm-hmm.
Trey Turner.
That's right.
All right. So tomorrow there is a semifinal Saturday at the FCS level, Gene. This has been a 16-team FCS level college football playoff this spring. Could that work at the FBS level?
16's too many. I mean, I think 8 is the optimum number you can get in that system. Every Power 5 conference champion involved, and you get many more than that. And I know that 10 and 12 are out there, but then I think you really dent the bowl system. I think you could still be fine with 10 or 12. It'd be okay. Believe me, I'd still watch the games. That's for sure. The lesser bowl games, but I think 8's the optimum number personally.
How, a couple, we talked to Mike Morgan about this other day, and he brought up some interesting points as to why some of the headlines were what they were, but how much will we learn over the next couple of months about the investment to grow the playoff? I mean, we saw, they maybe like the number 12 for a couple of reasons, but it might not be 12. It might be 8, it might be 6. We don't really know anything. But as we head into the summer, which is generally a very down time in college football, how much do you think we'll learn about the future of the structure of the postseason of this sport?
I think whereas Bill Hancock, representing the people, the major conference commissioners that run this thing, has been very tight-lipped, I think you're going to hear a lot, because I think college athletics in general and college football specifically in this case is in a heck of a battle to grow the game, to grow interest after a weird year, and even before COVID, declining butts in the seat attendance was alarming to them. They have to do something. They cannot have entire quarters of the country, Big 12, Pac-12, just eliminated from playoff contention when, Washington lost a game in late September. Oklahoma State was upset on October 10th. And therefore, it's pretty much known now the Big 12's out of the playoff. You cannot have that when you are a big-time national sport.
Well, and you're right. And, Nick Saban has, I think, kind of hit the nail on the head with this. He said, look, once we went to the playoff system, even the 14 playoff, it pretty much devalued the bowl system. I mean, I know that there are still bowls, Gene, that people like us who just really love this sport, really love to watch. And I'm not even just talking about the Rose Bowl. Like, I like to watch the Outback Bowl and the Citrus Bowl. I grew up with them. They're neat matchups. But nationally relevant, not really, not anymore. And so if they continue to grow the college football playoff, it's going to devalue the bowl system even more. I don't know what the future of the bowl system is, but I'll say this, to your point, you can't grow college football if you have the same 5 teams every single year in contention for the playoff. Like, you've got to have a bigger pot than that. And so if you go to 8 teams, maybe that gives you 12 or 16 teams every year that you're paying attention. I think it actually makes the regular season more valuable. I think it makes the postseason more interesting. I don't know if it's more valuable because the bowls will be less relevant.
I agree with you. Basically, slightly differ on the same teams thing. Yeah, Clemson right now, Ohio State and Alabama are riding high. This just isn't. They won't always be, and you know they can get not mediocre, but not elite. No time soon, but at some point. The problem though is when you have two of the conferences, one of them, the Pac-12, that is almost always left out, and the Big 12 about every other year is left out. You just cannot have that if you consider yourself a major national sport, which college football absolutely insists that it is.
So is the answer to reward the conference champions, or is it just to pick the best teams?
You have to, in some way, reward the conference champions just for the political reasons of what I just said. So that's part of it. But I think in 12, with a 12-team or a 10-team thing, there would be no problem with that. You're going to have conference champions most of the time within that 10 or 12. Maybe not always. I realize that. But still, you just have to do it. And even in the 8, I think you have to do it. You know. That's just the way of the world. You can't just disenfranchise a fourth, a fifth, a third of your membership like that.
Should there be a group of 5 slot in there, or hey, one year they might make it, one year they might not?
I'm fine with no group of 5 slot. They realistically have no competitive chance to win, even though, I'd love to see Coastal Carolina playing Notre Dame in New York's New Year's 6 game this next year, which some people have already predicted online. But no, they have no chance to actually win the national championship, so I'm fine with them being out.
Coastal Carolina is just announced a $15 million indoor facility. What exactly is Jamie Chadwell building in Conway, Gene? Are they the next UCF? Are they the next Boise State? Who are they?
Hard to say, and much of the credit goes to, the Coastal Carolina board for bringing in Joe Mowgli, who brought in lots of cash, and then brought in Jamie Chadwell, who's a really, really good coach. I mean, what he accomplished at Charleston Southern will never be accomplished again there, and is ridiculous. I don't know how long he's there, but it's really exciting to see what's going on there, and they're making the most of it. Very shrewd management by Matt Hogue, the athletic director, and everyone else at Coastal right now, and how they're going about playing this football time in the sunshine.
Speaking of Coastal, former broadcaster turned AD.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You mean there's hope for us, Darren?
Yeah.
Coastal, by the way, is down 4-0 to Troy in the through the first inning in college baseball. Speaking of which, Gene, we're going to hold off on the PJ Championship stuff with you until next week as we start to get a little bit closer. But it's a major weekend in college baseball across the country. I mentioned earlier teams outside of our state that have enormous series this weekend. ECU is hosting Tulane, who leads the AAC at 13-2. Florida and Kentucky. Wildcats trying to get in there. Florida trying to maintain a regional spot. They lost last night to the Wildcats up in Lexington. Texas and TCU, a 3-6 matchup this weekend, and at the home of the Horned Frogs, and Arizona is at Stanford.
And Jamie, I'm aware of that Texas TCU battle because the strength and conditioning intern for Horned Frogs baseball is one Jeffrey Sapikov.
How about that?
Wait. Why have you been keeping this in the back pocket for God knows how long? You're kidding me.
I waited till the Horned Frogs were number 2 in the RPI as they are right now.
Gene, I honestly could not be happier for Jeffrey and for your family. That is fantastic news. Congrats. That is great. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah. He's been having a good time with them, and they've played a tough schedule. But, yeah, it'd be cool to see, like, the Gamecocks and the Horned Frogs in Omaha or something like that.
That is so – I say it often that the tentacles of college baseball somehow have the Palmetto State tied into them everywhere. Scott Wingo's up at Notre Dame, for instance. You could go on and on. Jeffrey Sapikoff out at TCU. That is so cool. Wow. That made my day.
Scott Wingo at Notre Dame is cool. I mean, that's the best team in the ACC right now. And until further notice, they're pretty much by far the best team in the ACC.
There's no question, but they might not be the hottest. That might actually be Clemson, because they've swept right through the last two series. That includes Dan McDonald's Cardinals last weekend up at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. They also beat USC Upstate by 7 runs this week. And for those who haven't paid attention, Upstate's having a good year. The Tigers are riding a 7-game winning streak, and they'll head to Georgia Tech this weekend in Atlanta to try to continue that 22-18, 15-12 in the ACC. And I'm going to turn it over to you on this one. People who criticized Monty Lee, I said, you might want to wait until the end of the year and let's see what this thing looks like. They've gotten it going at the right time, Gene, and I think if you want to criticize him, you probably need to give him some credit right now too, because he's got a bunch of young guys playing really good, like, I don't know, Caden Grice, who's probably going to be the freshman of the year.
Yeah, 6'6", and he can pitch too, besides being a slugger and just the pure freshman. That's amazing. Just ridiculous. It's going to be so much fun to watch him. So they're finishing with Georgia Tech, Florida State, and Duke. But, they've got one other interesting game in there. Tuesday, May 11th, South Carolina Gamecocks coming to town. Now, Clemson is now at like 41 in the RPI or something like that, and that is a jump. Yeah, 41, a jump from the 70s before this streak began against Wake Forest. And then obviously being the first team to ever sweep Louisville in an ACC regular season series. I couldn't believe that, and I had to look that up 2 or 3 times when I heard that. But Jamie and Darren, that May 11th game against the Gamecocks in Clemson is, I mean, it's always huge because we care about it in the state, but it's really, really big for both teams. A little bigger for Clemson because while that could affect, the Gamecocks hosting or not, or how they end up in a super regional situation, it could be like Clemson getting in or not. And I wonder, does Monty see that and maybe really change his pitching up and go with a weekend guy, or give Jeffrey Gilbert, who's been about their best pitcher, give him his first start of the season? That would be really interesting to me.
That is a very interesting point, Gene, and that is a huge game for them no matter what happens this weekend with the Gamecocks. Because of South Carolina's RPI, it's still going to be high. But I'll ask you this about Carolina. Do they have to win the series against Chris Lemonis, Scott Foxhall, and the Mississippi State Bulldogs to be in that top 20 regional group next week?
I don't think they do. I mean, maybe, I'm biased or something, but you just look at the ridiculous schedule they've played. I think if they win one game, that they're going to be in there. If they get swept, that's not going to be good. The problem for the Gamecocks going forward, though, is, now we're going to play, Kentucky and Tennessee. Kentucky and Tennessee, look where Tennessee is, number 7 in the RPI. And Kentucky, I just said that Clemson vaulted up to 41. Kentucky's ahead of them at 39.
Yep.
It just doesn't get any easier. And that's what SEC baseball's about. And I know that Mark Kingston's saying that same thing that Chad Holbrook said, who was repeating Ray Tanner, is that we welcome the pressure that comes with fan expectations here and with SEC baseball.
Yeah. And you do welcome the pressure. You got to be able to perform. They've changed the rotation this weekend. We talked to Skylar a little bit about it yesterday, so we'll kind of see how that goes, Gene. And they've had some struggles lately. In May, look, man, you've been around this sport a long time. When you get to the final stretch of the season, you are who you are. Like, it just is what it is. You're not going to magically be something that you haven't been for the last 3 months, but you can get hot. Have you seen enough from South Carolina to think, you know what, this team can get hot and be dangerous, maybe just like Clemson's doing right now?
Well, absolutely. I mean, first of all, they haven't gotten – look at the Ole Miss series. They're pitching well enough to win. I mean, they're not getting blown out, just some timely hits here and there. Yeah. But I think with South Carolina, it's just pretty obvious that there's kind of a ceiling there. I mean, there's Vanderbilt, Texas, Ole Miss, Arkansas, and they can't beat them. But they pretty much can beat everybody else. And to me, that's absolutely deserving, for the sake of this conversation, of a host spot in the regionals. Now, can they win the College World Series? Probably not if you're just not able to beat all those good teams on your schedule. But could they get to Omaha? Sure, they could.
College baseball's postseason could be a little bit normal again with both Clemson and South Carolina in it this year. Right now, I would say as expected. All right, Gene. Where are you going to be this weekend? Are you going to be camping out on Kiowa, getting ready, or what do you do? Yeah, that's all you've done is hang out around golf courses for the last month or so.
Yeah, they want me to rake the sand out of the ocean course and make sure there's no debris in the sand and stuff like that, But I don't know. I'll be monitoring a lot of baseball and trying to watch a lot on various devices that I can see. And also working on an annual column that I have that is ranking the SEC and ACC football coaches from 1 to 28.
Well, how many years have you been doing that now?
Since the late 50s. No, but I don't know. Probably 8 or 9. I'm not sure.
Before we let you go, I want to get your I guess your take on Thomas Boswell, right? I grew up, my entire life has been spent reading Thomas Boswell. I feel like you're very much like a Boswell of this area, right? You're always covering the Masters. You're always covering baseball. Boz is one of the titans of the industry. If you don't know him, I know, Gene, you do. It covered sports for the Washington Post, I think, for over 50 years, something crazy like that. Do you know him? Any good stories? Because it seems everyone who knows him has the same glowing remarks to say about Boswell, who announced he's retiring today.
Darren, 1999 World Series, Turner Field, Atlanta, Georgia, Yankees, Braves. I sit down and get my seat kind of harried coming off the field, doing interviews before the game, sit down. I look to my left, and I see the card, who's going to sit next to me? Thomas Boswell, Washington Post. Of course, I'd met him briefly, but he didn't know who I was. The whole game 1, which is in Atlanta, we talked, and he's just smoothly writing this column while he's talking to me. And I'm nervously trying to put something together because I want to talk to him, but I have a deadline. It was beautiful. I thought the Braves were going to beat the Yankees that year. He explained in the first inning that, Maddox and Glavine just aren't going to match up with this Yankee lineup and these Yankee pitching, and you got to throw hard to win, and they don't throw that hard, and that's the future of baseball, throwing hard. Everything he said was exactly on, and what happened in the Yankees just thumping the Braves and the future of baseball, and it was just a beautiful experience.
That sounds awesome.
That's a neat story. Yeah, that is really cool. And the Yankees won.
He'll be missed. I mean, he reading his even to this day. I mean, he's the reason, and some of the guys covering the net, they're the reason I still have my subscription to the Post.
Well, I mean, if you grew up at that time, you getting Kornheiser and Wilbon.
That's right.
And I mean, and Boswell, but Boswell's books, and I mean from decades ago, are still just great. I think he's got one. I think Why Time Begins on Opening Day, and Fathers and Sons Playing Catch, and this kind of stuff. I mean, yeah, he's just absolutely beyond a legend.
Well, you should all subscribe to the Post and Courier if you haven't done so. Post and Courier.com. Download the little app on your phone and read it every single day. It's fantastic. So is Gene, and we're glad to have him. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, my friend, and we'll talk to you here pretty soon.
Thanks a lot, guys.
See ya.
Yes, sir. And I am so frustrated. He has not told us about Jeffrey until just now. You got to be kidding. Wow. Neat stories. All right. Timeout. When we return, Derek Scott, voice of Gamecock Baseball. He'll lay it out for you right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
Mike Morgan here for Gamecock Traditions. Baseball is going strong. You'll want to look sharp when you cheer on your Gamecocks. Under Armour, New Era, sideline hats, all with interlocking SC Baseball logo. 18 styles of $10 tees exclusively at Gamecock Traditions. Get on that email list by going to the bottom of the page, enter your email, and always be the first to know about new items as they arrive. You can also add a little Gamecock flair with house signs, garden flags, interior and yard decorations, only at one place, Gamecock Traditions.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston. Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Lowcountry. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
What's up, everybody? This is South Carolina singer-songwriter Patrick Davis, and I might live in Nashville, Tennessee now, but guess what? I can always keep up with the news back in South Carolina because I've got the JB and Goldwater Show. Thank you, JB and Darren, for being live, loud, and awesome.
Final segment of the work week, the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen Power Hour, powered by Wando Power Equipment in the Lowcountry. They come from everywhere, the Midlands, the coast, the upstate even. Oh, yeah, I could name all types of St. George, Santee, Georgetown, UG, everywhere. They come from everywhere to Daniel Island to see our friends, the Price family, over at Wando Power Equipment, where they've been for over 30 years. That's right. You can rent a mower if you need one. You can rent an aerator. We all need to aerate the lawn, but if you are maybe looking for that commercial zero-turn mower, the Wes Clark of zero-turn mowers is the Hustler Raptor series. Bigger, stronger, faster. I know Wes isn't fast, but the ball leaves the yard in a hurry. The Hustler Raptor series over at Wando Power Equipment. Make sure you check it out. Make sure you check them out at wandopower.com. We're going to check in on Derek Scott, who's the voice of Gamecock baseball. He's a busy man, and he's been kind enough to squeeze us into his schedule. And tonight, he'll be on the air bringing you game 1 of the Mississippi State Bulldogs and the South Carolina Gamecocks at Founders Park. Hey, bud.
Gentlemen, how are we?
Oh, we're rocking and rolling, dude. It's Friday. We're off the weekend. This is when you work. Well, you work 7 days a week. You always work.
This time of year, yeah. There's no the only upside to all these daggone doubleheaders we've been playing lately is I found myself having the occasional Saturday and or Sunday free, and it has been pretty neat, actually.
What do you do?
Well, last Sunday I was in Memphis waiting for a flight that wasn't going to come until late in the evening. So I went to the Stax Record Museum because I'd meant to do that on a previous trip there with basketball, and it screwed that up. So I was able to make good on it. And if it all depends on your musical taste, but if you have any respect for that Memphis sound from the 60s and 70s, when you had Booker T and the MGs and Isaac Hayes and Otis Redding and Sam and Dave, it was a cool way to spend an afternoon for me.
Oh, I bet that was fantastic. Yeah, Skylar laid out, we were texting last week before y'all left, and he laid out the whole travel situation. And of course, the schedule all changed with the double dip that you had to play, but Charlotte and then Memphis and then an hour drive to the ballpark and the hotel's an hour away. I know we're going to talk about Mississippi State, but what's that? I mean, you see it. You see these guys when you're on the road with them. Derek, what's that like? Does it take a toll? What type of toll does it take on the club?
That's a great question. I think the toughest day for them was really Sunday, and the series was over with by then. But, we have a hotel around noon, and everybody's got to pick, you got to kill time all afternoon. So those guys went to the legendary pyramid that is now a Bass Pro Shops, which is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. But to think, hey, this place once hosted the SEC basketball tournament. Now it's a Bass Pro Shops. Sure, why not?
Yeah.
So they just were basically killing time. And a lot of them I noticed sitting in the airport trying to get some work done for finals. So that to me looked like the day that was probably the hardest for them, the worst for them. But there were so many hurdles on that trip. I mean, we couldn't fly early, and then the weather was bad in Oxford, on Thursday evening. So you couldn't even if you wanted to make that extra drive from Olive Branch down there to practice, they couldn't. The weather wouldn't permit it. So they didn't get any practice in on Thursday. And then you end up playing 2 on Saturday. So, it's a long day. But I will say this, Ole Miss at least has a scenario where the visiting dugout used to be the home dugout before the renovations. So you actually have a legitimate clubhouse. You've got space for the guys to go back into, because there's a lot of parks, Founders included, where the visiting team doesn't really have any space. So when you're playing a doubleheader, you're very limited on, well, what exactly can you do? So it was a better scenario in that regard than most around the league, but it still is not, not exactly an optimal situation when you're sitting at a motel in Olive Branch an hour away all weekend because it's graduation.
No question. And you would have traded the clubhouse for a series win. No question.
Yes.
Heck, even a game. But it didn't work out that way. And you know what? There's nothing to do about it. You wondered if that would carry over, and some felt like maybe it almost did. I know the Tuesday game got pushed to Wednesday, but at the end of the day, some of these midweeks can be strange. They came back. They beat the Ospreys of North Florida 7-6. Old Georgie Khalil there with a little single late in the ball game to get South Carolina in front of that one. Derek, I think that was an important moment. I don't know that many people have paid attention to it and probably aren't going to talk about it much because, South Carolina is expected to beat North Florida, but they've had a couple of tough weekends against Arkansas and Ole Miss, and you got a little belief back in the end of that ball game, and now they'll carry that into the weekend where they've altered the rotation. So Brandon Jordan starts tonight. Your thoughts on that? Jordan, Sanders, Farr. I mean, it is what it is, right?
Well, I've been defending, Farr for a few weeks now with people that wanted to make him the bad guy, pointing out that, he had not gotten anything that resembled decent run support or great defense behind him. And I just didn't feel like, that was necessarily, the reason for the Friday night struggles. But I also can understand Coach Kingston's perspective on saying, let's shake it up. Let's try something different. Let's just for the sake of not sitting still, not standing pat. What is it they say? You keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. That's insanity. So he was going to try something different. I've also felt like for a while that this team may be blessed and cursed at the same time by not necessarily having a true SEC Friday night ace, but having a plethora of guys who were certainly good enough to be Saturday guys. And so with that being the case, you give someone else a shot. It's not like Jordan's going to have stuff that is better than Farr from the standpoint of what a Friday night guy looks like. And maybe just as important as anything for anybody pitching on Friday night is if you're going to get hit, you can't walk guys on top of that. Jordan has certainly not been hit very much. His walk total is too high, but the batting average against is pretty special. So if he can control the free passes and continue to miss bats, it gives this team a chance. But it's still so much of it falls on the other guys, the 8 guys behind him, who have to do a better job of swinging the bats, producing runs, manufacturing some offense instead of sitting back and waiting on the big blast, and then also catching and throwing the baseball on a consistent basis. Because you look at those history of those Friday night games or those Thursday night games, those series openers, it seems to be sloppy. They were in Oxford, and it's been a problem for whatever reason, more so on that game of the weekend than in the other two. And that's got to get solved as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's evident they're looking for a pick-me-up. They're looking for a jump start tonight, and I don't know if they're going to get one, Derek, or not. I mean, there's a couple interesting scenarios that have kind of unfolded here, right? So Brandon Jordan, I mean, Carolina is in an interesting spot. They're fighting for a regional host position. Next week, the NCAA is going to release 20 names or 20 schools who will be considered for those 16 slots. Carolina hopes to be one of them. Some believe it's very important that they win the series this weekend to make sure that they're in there. So Brandon Jordan's going to start on Friday nights. He's never started on Friday nights in the SEC. And we're going to have to kind of see how that goes. Christian McLeod has had his own problems. Jordan has not gone past the 5th inning in any of his previous 4 starts, Derek. And this number, as you mentioned, this isn't good. In his last 18 2/3 innings pitched, he's walked 17. And that will get you beat tonight against Mississippi State. But then the McLeod kid, who's a big 6'4", 230-pound lefty, he hasn't gone past the 5th inning in his last 3 starts either. So a good start tonight early on offensively could get somebody some momentum. But here's where it kind of works out maybe in Carolina's favor. Your Friday night guy, Farr, is going to start Sunday against Jackson Fristow, who hasn't been good at all, as a matter of fact, in a while. He's been actually in the SEC. He struggled a lot. So you got a favorable matchup on the mound there if you can get one of these first 1 or 2 ball games.
Right. And really, I think, there's so much emphasis on Friday because it's been such a problem. But Saturday, it may be more reason to have emphasis on Friday. It's Saturday, you don't have an even matchup, only insofar as Will Sanders is still so young. And the guy that Mississippi State runs out there on Saturday, honestly, I like him better than the Friday guy. I think Bednar is going to be special. And he already has shown glimpses of that against the likes of Vanderbilt. He has major league bloodlines. He's got the body that looks like a guy who's going to be pitching at the highest level in the not too distant future. And so for that reason, Saturday is going to be really difficult. Stands to be on paper because of the matchup. So it puts even more emphasis on trying to win Friday. But we all know that that's important for this team, just to release some of the pressure. And actually for the first time, since the Florida series, be able to come to the ballpark Saturday already having a leg up on the terms of winning a series.
I agree. And Derek, I don't know how often you don't say in the booth what you probably really want to say. There's probably plenty of times where you're like, you know what, I got to find another word or 6. But offensively, this has been tough to watch. And I think what's difficult, it's not necessarily the lack of production, Derek. I think it's the lack of competitive at bats for me. I mean, they have a lot of just really lazy, easy outs, and they got to find a way to put more pressure on opposing defenses and opposing arms. Maybe Wimmer at the top of the lineup helps change some of that if he can get going.
I wouldn't mind seeing guys try 2 different things. Whether it's Wimmer using the bunt, whether it's guys changing their approach with 2 strikes and spending more time trying to get base hits or just put the ball in play more so. I'd like to see more of that, but it's also real easy to put that request in and expect that, and not as easy for, to remember sometimes that these are just, these young kids who didn't even get to play last year. And I heard a podcast earlier today where some guys were talking about the fact that they feel like that's where it's most noticeable. The your way is in competitive at bats. So many guys who didn't get any reps swinging the bat last year. And it shows up in baseball in a lot of different places. Make no mistake, South Carolina is not the only offense in the SEC whose numbers don't look like you'd expect an SEC offense to look. So I think some of it has to do with all of the arms that typically would have been drafted last year and were not, as well as, some that would have gone straight to pro ball out of high school that did not. So that's a big part of it. But you're still, in comparison to your counterparts in the league, you're still at the bottom. And it's a veteran lineup, so that's not something that's real easy to accept. So yeah, I'm with you. You want to see somebody doing things a little different, see a few more bats where the pitch count gets extended, guys fight a little harder. And maybe tonight can be that night because, let's face it, this is a right-handed heavy lineup. So it stands to reason that they're going to have a better matchup against a lefty than some teams would that are a little more balanced in terms of, how that lineup breaks down.
You just brought up some really interesting points. I don't think a lot of people have thought about that. And they're not excuses because, as you mentioned, what surrounds you is determines kind of who you are. And South Carolina is who they are based on what surrounds them in this league. And other teams have just had better ABs than them. But, I think one of the things that is mystifying is maybe it's not mystifying. Maybe we don't want to acknowledge it, but it's Wes Clark. I mean, he's hitting 164 in the SEC, Derek.
Yep.
164. That's the worst average by far of anybody in the lineup. It's 26 points worse than George Khalil. And he continues to be in the middle of the lineup. At what point in time, I don't know, in your opinion, does that become, with the risk reward is way off? I mean, it's more of a liability than anything.
Well, but what do you do? I mean, they dropped him to 7th on Saturday, and he hit a 3-run home run, and that was a day when no one else got much going offensively. He still carries a bigger threat than a lot of guys in that lineup. It'd be different if he was at that number and everybody else was at 295 and above, but we know that's not the case, and you can only back Colin Burgess once in the lineup.
Yeah.
You can't write him in 3 times as much as right now you might want to. But to me, and I've talked to some of the coaches about this, Colin's approach is the one you wish you'd see more guys take some notes on. He's got a short swing.
Yep.
He keeps it simple. He still hits the ball and drives the ball with some power because of his style of hitting. He just doesn't have a lot of holes. And if you look at the numbers, I always spend a lot of time looking at strikeouts compared to walks and hit by pitch. He's got the lowest strikeout total of the regulars. He's got the best balance between 390s and strikeouts of the regulars. And his approach is drastically different than most guys in that lineup. And I'm not saying you can reinvent yourself and just be a copycat, but I'll tell you this, when this team was swinging the bats best against SEC pitching, it was the Florida series. And on the Friday, and I'm not even talking about the wind balloon game on Sunday, on Friday, especially Friday, they came out against Florida's best, and everybody had that approach. We're going to go the opposite way. We know he's a big velo guy. We're going to hit the opposite way. If you're going the opposite way, you're probably shortening up your stroke a bit. And they hit the ball hard that day. They barreled up so many balls and had a good output. Ran the Friday guy for Florida out of there relatively early. And I just don't think we've seen enough games that replicated that. And as Coach alluded to, he lets his veterans on some level monitor themselves, but he's taking a little bit more of a hands-on approach this past week as far as how to address the deficiencies and what they're working on in batting practice and trying to make them more aware of the things that just clearly aren't happening.
You answered the question. I mean, that was going to be my follow-up to you as well. What changed? I mean, if that was working, why would they have changed that? And what are they doing now to try to fix it? Because Derek, we know after this, it doesn't get any easier after this series. They don't ever play well in Lexington. So what do you expect as we get going tonight from an offensive standpoint? Do you feel like when there is the opportunity that Coach Kingston will take maybe a little bit of a different approach as to how he's managed in the last couple of years? Will he try to attempt, some more hit and runs and some double steals and things like that just to try to force something to happen?
I don't know that will be the case, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if that were the case. And some of that I know is matchup based. Just guys you trust to do certain things, guys you trust in a hit and run, guys you trust in a bunt situation, guys you trust to be able to carry out an assignment like a double steal, and others that you just don't feel comfortable putting that on them. So it comes down to who's at the plate when that circumstance, the potential for that circumstance arrives. And then also, let's face it, a lot of hitting comes down to how the guy on the mound is dealing. Yeah, some nights, as much as you hate to hear it, some nights you just got to tip your cap. And if it's going to happen, it oftentimes happens on Friday in the Southeastern Conference. So you just hope you don't run into one of those nights where a guy is dealing like we saw. I mean, I'll be honest with you, in Oxford, Friday night starter was good. I thought he got a lot of help from the home plate umpire. He got a lot of help from his catcher, who really conned the home plate umpire. Frame pitches beautifully. He's going to be a first-round draft pick in 22, so it wasn't shocking that he did it. What hurt the Gamecocks is that Burgess was held out that game because of the concussion, and he couldn't match it. So Thomas Farr, according to TrackMan, had 4 balls that were called strikes, where Ole Miss's starting pitcher had, I think it was 15 balls that were called strikes. That's hard to deal with. And I don't think that home plate umpire was biased against one team or the other. He was just dealing with one catcher who was really talented at framing, and the other side didn't have their guy in the lineup who usually is very good about stealing some strikes for you. But then on Saturday, to watch Nikhazy go out there and not have a 3-ball count in, 7 innings? I mean, when you run into a dude like that who's throwing a lot of, it wasn't heavily fastball oriented. It was a lot of breaking balls. I mean, there's sometimes you just got to say, wow, that dude had it today. And those are tough days to deal with when you're, scuffling along a little bit right now, like the Gamecocks have been these last couple of weekends, but it does happen. And there are plenty of guys in this league capable of putting together a night like that. And they don't all just, go under the name tag of Vandy boys, despite what some of the college baseball media wants you to believe.
Good. I love that. Well done there, my friend. Well, yeah, and you're right. And, if there's anything we know about this group, this is not the most talented team Carolina's ever fielded. We all know that, but they are pretty resilient. And we've seen them, the Florida Friday night game, that Sunday win at Vanderbilt, the Saturday in Baton Rouge, or Friday, whatever day that was, the double dip. I mean,
Saturday.
There's walk-offs in Clemson. I mean, this team knows how to bounce back. I expect that they'll be ready to go. Derek, you've been around them all year. I think you would know that more than us. I just want to ask this question now that you've brought it up. In your opinion, how many future first-round draft picks do you think you've seen this year opposing South Carolina?
All right, let's think. Texas is Friday guy for sure. Ty Madden. I can't put my finger on one specific guy in that lineup, so I don't know that I want to say there's one position player for Texas, but I wouldn't be shocked if there is. I love that shortstop, but I don't know if he's that kind of talent. The kid who's hitting the ball all over the place for Clemson, Mr. Former weekend last week. Yeah. He's only a freshman, right? I mean, wouldn't bet against him in a couple of years being in that category. At Vandy, obviously, you've got the minimum 2 starters, probably at least 2 other dudes. Eventually, I'd say 4 first rounders. You could say is a safe bet out of that unit. I mean, here we go. Georgia has 2 starting pitchers who I wasn't impressed with, but the scouts love. And they talk about them like they're first round picks. Arkansas, good grief. Kid who's at second base will be apparently considered very highly, projected for next year's draft. The center fielder this year will be a first rounder, I do believe. A couple of their arms will be, if somebody didn't use a high draft pick on Kevin Kopps, then I don't understand baseball, because that slider or that cutter plays on any level. Every weekend, Ole Miss has a couple of arms who will be. It's insanity how deep it is this year. You knew it was going to be this way because you knew what changed with the draft, but just to watch it day to day, week to week, it is staggering.
And Marcel at LSU.
Oh, absolutely. Love that guy.
Love him. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's, that plays a part in all this, but here's the good news, Derek. You're going to call 3 straight wins this weekend. So I hope you're fired up. I hope your voice is ready to go, brother. I
will be more than happy to mill along through whatever you throw at me if that's what the end result has in store for me. That's pretty sweet. Gamecocks need to win a series. There's no question about it. Right now, the resume lies too heavily on the sweep of Florida. You've got to have another series win against a quality team, against a team that's an NCAA tournament team, a ranked team, and that's what they're missing right now in reality.
Spot on. And don't forget what's coming up next week. If they beat Clemson, Darren's going to be hitting you up, man.
Yep. That's what bummed me out the most about Jack Mahoney's injury. I hate it for 1,000 reasons, but I really wanted to see Jack go into the mound Tuesday up at Dick Kingsmore for all the reasons you would assume, but also, of course, because my choreography skills are going to be in question if that's where we're headed.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'll be watching. Hey, thanks, buddy. It's great to hear from you. Really, I'm telling you, you make my weekends, man. I love it. I sit on the porch and I do have the game on TV, but I silence that and listen to you. You and Tommy do a great job. You separate my crazy life with twin little girls for 9 hours every weekend. So thank you so much. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, you make sure you've got Mother's Day handled, because I'm guessing the kiddos aren't quite ready for that responsibility yet.
No, I got that. Yeah, we're all good. We're having cinnamon rolls. We're going to be fun.
All right.
See you, Derek.
Great weekend.
Later. There you go. Derek Scott, the voice of Gamecocks baseball. Eric Church takes us home. Thanks to Derek Scott, Gene Sapikoff, and Raphael Esparza, and Darren Goldwater, and all of you for watching and listening. We hope you have a marvelous, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend. And we look forward to seeing you all on Monday to figure all this regional mess out. Thanks, Darren.
Thank you, buddy. Have a good weekend.
Yes, sir. You too, Steven. Thanks, man. Have a great weekend. The JB and Goldwater Show returns noon on Monday, and we'll see you then.
I'm a simple man. All you